Hello. We're in the octave of Corpus Christi, where we spend the week thinking and thanking God for an amazing sacrament, namely the gift of Himself to us under the host and within the chalice. Obviously, this is a bit of a controversial subject for some Christians, and it often means that there is some ill feeling. And it's important to understand why. If there is a disagreement about what we are receiving when we go to the Mass, go to communion, if we disagree about what that is, then we're saying something very clear about the nature of reality as we understand it in our relationship with God. There are some who think that it is just symbolic, purely symbolic. So the bread and the wine, they're just memories, literally just thinking back to what our Lord Jesus Christ did. Now notice that that's not altogether wrong. Indeed, it's very laudable, trying to get back to be in communion with Christ through memory. And we think of the Lord's command, you shall love the Lord our God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And there we have it. To worship God in a sort of memorialist way, to think of the Eucharist as a memorial. It has an element of worshipping God with one's mind. But thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. It's not just the mind. Faith is not an exercise of the intellect. A faith is lived. And that's why Catholics, particularly, of all stripes, see the Eucharist as an objective presence of God, that He is there, our Lord Jesus Christ is there, present in the host, His body in the host, His blood in the chalice. He is there, and He is as present to us as we are to Him. And that enables us to love with all our heart, soul, mind and strength. For if the mind is something that proceeds from the soul, and the strength is something that proceeds from the body, then the Eucharist, receiving the body and blood in their reality, links our bodies and our souls even more closely with His body and soul. And that's why the Catholic belief is richer than some Protestant beliefs. But remember, what the Protestant retains is by no means wrong. It's just less full. There's the verse from the Psalms. I forget which one now. But I remember singing it as part of the Matin responsory, cadged from some work by Palestrina. But it goes, high and low, rich and poor, one with another. And there one can see perhaps a slightly different interpretation of the Eucharist, because obviously in the Psalm it's talking about those of high status, those of low status, those who are rich and those who are poor, and we can apply that perhaps spiritually. And we can think of the high view of the Eucharist, and we can think of the low view of the Eucharist. We can think of the rich view of the Eucharist, and we can think of the poor view of the Eucharist. And that brings us perhaps to a difficulty. That is the notion of not being in communion. We're not in communion with Rome. Not from our side. I think we would quite happily allow Roman Catholic to receive communion from us. But we wouldn't want them to, because we know that it would break their rule. And their rule is that you shall not share communion with someone who isn't a Roman Catholic. But likewise, we are not in communion with the Church of England or the Episcopal Church or the Anglican Communion. And that's a sorry state of affairs. But it is a necessary state of affairs. If we don't believe that we are receiving Christ in the Eucharist, how are we in communion with him? As I say, if we go by bare memorialism, that it's just a memory, and we don't believe that Christ is present, how is that being in communion with him? It's a different understanding. I don't ask the question pejoratively, but it's a real question. Because the communion of someone who just remembers what Christ did in the Eucharist has a very different idea of communion than someone who believes that Christ is really present in the Eucharistic elements. It's very different. A good friend said to me, well, it's like being at a restaurant and all having different dishes, but everyone's saying that they're the same. Someone's got chicken soup, another person's got rump steak, and they all say, "Oh, we're eating lasagna." It's a bit incongruous. There's discrepancy. And that means we do have to protect ourselves and each other from the effects of different ideas of communion. The Catholic idea of communion is that we are in physical contact with God. And if we deny that that happens, then we are cut off. We are cut off by our denial. We have excommunicated ourselves. That's the problem. It's not a matter of prelates and bishops pointing accusatory fingers and saying, "Oh, we have excommunicated you." No, it's the fact that our belief has excommunicated ourselves. And that's what we say about the Anglican Communion. They have excommunicated themselves because they have changed the belief that they have. That's what they've done. And now they have to sort of go their way, and we have to go our way. But we still remember that at the very least, there is some presence of Christ, some intention of Christ. So while we do shut the doors on our Eucharistic feasts, there are windows that should be kept open, through which we can talk. I remember a church that had a little hole in the side of the sanctuary, so that at the moment of consecration the person outside could pop in and see the elevated host. We need to do that. We need to keep the windows open, and we need to be ready to talk. But clearly, if we don't believe what the Catholic Church believes, then we have excommunicated ourselves. That's really as simple as that. So what do? We keep praying. Keep praying for Christ to be seen in the sacrament with the eyes of the soul. Though there are occasions where we may catch a glimpse with our eyes. We must never, ever shut our eyes to the possibility of God surprising us. So, God bless you as you seek Him, and however you seek Him in the Eucharist, you have to look at what you believe and where that leads you. So God bless you in that search, that you may be led to Christ. You may be drawn ever more closely to Him, so that you may indeed worship Him with all your body, with the heart, soul, mind and strength. God bless you in your search. God bless you in your faith as it increases. And please pray for me.